Alejandro probably just has the best deck in the room, for sure. Hirudegarn Aggro can beat, like, just fight through anything. I really haven't seen it in a game state or a position where it just can't. Even if it has to get a little bit fortunate or set up a game state where, it has to go through some difficulties to win it, it can set that up, and just been performing really well so far. And in the hands of Alejandro, who rarely makes any gameplay mistakes, I think he's a good favorite to win. So.
On the other side, we got Philip. Philip is a pretty, he's a pretty known face in card games. He plays Super Smash also. Very avid gamer. He has played many different games. I think the last game that he played was actually Yu-Gi-Oh! But he's actually playing Dragon Ball today. I think this is the first time him playing Dragon Ball in his life, and he really likes the game. Both of these guys, I believe, are X1.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, they're both X1. And yes, there was some Super Saiyan 3 Namek decks. There was one, at least. We featured one, and it was an epic game. The most epic of games. It was crazy. I can't believe. Dude, Fernando, if you were here, man, I was like...
You were screaming?
Yes, dude. I was screaming. I was just, wow. It was such a good game. I can't wait for that to go up on YouTube. But anyways, Alejandro looks like he's going to have a turn here. A pretty decent turn. He's already untapping energy. He's getting his opponent down. He's changed the life totals. Yeah, he just killed the monkey. He was just like, I'm not dealing with that blocker.
And here's a really good example of what I've been seeing recently, where when opponents, for example, when a blue opponent would summon a Bergamo, or a yellow player summons an early turn ape, like Philip Masker did here, the aggro decks are normally, in the early game, their cards are more powerful than the opponent's cards, and so you saw that Alejandro just comboed a bunch of cards in his hand and pushed through the first ape like it was nothing. So, it has that early game power to where it doesn't just lose to the first creature the opponent plays. So.
Yeah, and a deck that gains a lot of advantage with the leader netting you one on the attack. It's really good because then you can discard a lot of cards that may not be good in the matchup. Zeno's obviously very good, but I only had to charge it here. But there's going to be a lot of you're going to be seeing a lot of cards. There's a lot of options. You discard a card, you trade, and you see another two. So you usually can find the best card to put down. Even. Yeah.
And I feel like it's not outside the realm of possibility that Alejandro could win this turn if he had it. I think he has one Senzu Bean, a few Trunkses, but he just decides to play it a little bit slower. Yeah, so he passes turn. Alejandro, I know him to be a more conservative player than a super aggressive player, so even in the most aggro deck, he'll decide to take conservative lines of play. Maybe because it's game one, so he wants to know exactly what his opponent's up to. So he decides to pass turn there.
Yeah, so Philip's actually playing Goku's Lineage Apes.
Okay. It's different. I suppose it could be a little bit more proactive, more explosive. Might give him more of an edge against the Zeno deck here, because regular Apes does have a bit of a problem dealing with the Zeno combo. So maybe his deck choice to add Lineage cards into the deck is what's paying off for him here.
Yeah, I think to note that every ape deck is playing this Bardock, this one-drop Bardock, and it is a Goku's Lineage card. So your Successor of Hope in this build particularly has just so many more options. You don't have to just go for the Bardock, where the Bardock is really bad every turn past what you already awakened in. It is a pretty bold move for Philip to play a Bardock on 4 and go down to 3.
No, it's the second time we see him do it. The first ape died. We're going to be able to see if Alejandro can deal with the second one, especially when Masker adds an extra blocker to his field for 0 mana. You've seen a resurgence of all the 0 mana the blockers. They're all 5Ks, and many people are choosing to play almost 4 copies of those. Really respecting the aggressive format right now.
Yeah, cards that can be cheated into play with energy, or leaders that can cheat energy, or cards that can just cheat the cost of their normal casting cost. We've already seen, and it's already been proven to be very, very powerful. So all these blockers that you would never even bat your eye twice to is now kind of like, is there any free blockers with this leader that I can play? Is there any free blockers that I can play that I play a lot of names of, like Bardock, for example? Like Super Saiyan 3 doesn't have a free leader that comes out. If you have a Super Saiyan 3, that would be insane. But because of that, Philip is actually getting a little bit creative and trying to find, like, what do I need to play to get a free blocker?
This is going to be a Flying Nimbus, yep. Honestly, if Philip didn't have a Flying Nimbus that turn,
He probably would have lost.
He would have just lost on that same turn, but he had a Nimbus. Alejandro Mena is going to try his best to play around it. Maybe like he did on turn 2, he's going to try to go for the Ape. But there is a blocker in the way, so I have a suspicion Philip Master is going to untap with that Ape this turn as opposed to last turn. But we'll see. Only with 4 cards in hand, but crucially he does have a Master Roshi. And Alejandro, he might have a few of the GT basically pseudo super combo in his hand, but he doesn't have that much action besides that. So you can see him here using his leader ability to discard 1 card and draw 2, try to get more cards to be aggressive with this turn. He still has all 3 of his mana. Hirudegarn can do a lot with 3 mana. Most of its cards are 0 or 1 cost. He has a Trunks there to untap, but instead.
This is actually pretty interesting. Alejandro's playing Raging Spirit Sun Gohan. What do you think about this? This is not a card that you really want to see in aggro decks, but you're seeing it now for the first time. I've never seen a Hirudegarn deck with that.
I mean, it's just value, and it gets a few attacks in there. So it also helps against all the aggressive cards that opponents have that are 20Ks. If they don't invest combo power into them, it's a free summon on the opponent's turn. It gives the deck a little bit more of an outplay ability, and it's not bad just comboing on your own turn too. So definitely, I think it's an auto include.
Yeah. Well, we're going to see a March of the Great Apes from Philip here, and that's going to be a good one because not only is it going to net him 2 cards, it's going to net him up to 2 apes, but unfortunately it looks like he can only land 1 there.
Yeah, the early game aggression by Alejandro forced him. I think that March was honestly forced. It's very rare that you want to just play a March of the Great Apes for 1 ape, but he just had to. He had to progress his game in some way. But definitely not the most optimal turn. And I think he top decked that ape too, so his turn would have been much less powerful if he hadn't drawn that Vegeta ape.
Now Philip is going after Alejandro's life. And in this specific situation, facing down 3 Raging Attacker Gohans, do you go for the Gohans over the life here?
Honestly, if I was him, I would just pass turn, because he doesn't have a planet Vegeta on board right now, so those apes aren't untapping. He doesn't have the blockers for Alejandro's turn.
Yep, that's correct actually. I hope Philip doesn't hope to rely on those blockers for next turn, because he is playing against a very explosive deck, and Alejandro just might take the game from that small little mistake from Philip.
I actually am surprised that Alejandro flipped on the opponent's turn.
Yeah, no, I was very surprised there.
I think he could have just been a little more patient, had 2 energy for his own turn. Maybe he just recognizes he doesn't need it. And now Hirudegarn's other side, the ability turns on when he has 4 energy. Every time the leader attacks, Philip has to put a card back to the top of his deck. So even just playing slowly, very little aggression, a lot of Gohans on board right now. Alejandro might just win because Philip didn't get a great start this game, so Alejandro recognized that, and just like that, he's taking control in card advantage without even using a Zeno. So surprising.
Yeah, very good. It's not often that you see Hirudegarn take control of its second half. Its awakened side. You really don't see that auto trigger very often, but it looks like Ale is actually taking the opportunity here to actually use that auto. That auto is a powerful one, making your opponent lose a card and you gaining a card. It's a 2-point conversion.
Yeah, it's almost a +1, +1.5 because they have to draw the card again, and it's honest because Ale has recognized, okay, my opponent has had a very few plays this game. He's only made 3 apes so far, and only one of them came out of the march. He has very low resources, so Alejandro can just take all the time in the world and just wait to set up for. He doesn't even need a big turn right now, but just slow and steady with these Gohans. And any one turn that Philip has that he doesn't have a flying Nimbus for Alejandro's turn is just gonna be game over. So Alejandro's being patient, grinding through the flying Nimbus, and not overextending, losing in the swing back randomly. So very patient and proper play from him at this point.
Yeah, it's really hard as a player playing Hirudegarn. You don't know exactly sometimes when to go in and when not to go in. And sometimes players will bait you into going in. And then you just get ultimately punished. And then once you get baited into that trap, there's no way out.
And what he's trying to set up right now is he's discarding some cards in his hand so that he can play the 3-mana red Gohan. He's promo. Let me look the name right here. If I'm not mistaken, it's burst attacks on Gohan. Whenever it has critical 1500, whenever it attacks, if you have 4 or less cards in hand, you draw 2. He didn't summon it, he could have. He had the requisite energy. So again, he's just following that really conservative line of play. And maybe Philip has not been super aggressive at this game because of that Goku's Lineage package kind of getting in the way of drawing the Ape package. You see in his energy he has a lot of Lineage cards, and he just has not had the most wonderful draw of this game, so we'll see if he can come back. Here's another march. It's a march for 0 apes, just to draw 2 cards.
That's not what you want to be doing in this matchup.
You never want to be doing that.
It's okay. I mean, you can get away with it in maybe like a mono blue matchup.
Right.
But I don't think you can get away with it in this matchup.
Yeah, anytime that you have an established field, drawing 2 cards for 4 energy is totally acceptable. But he just doesn't have anything going on right now, so just something to refuel his hand. But I think Alejandro should close it up pretty soon here. Good thing Philip is gonna have game 2 and 3 to try to recover. See, now he knows what Alejandro's playing, so he might have a sideboard plan dedicated to this deck, as it's one of the most popular decks in the field. So maybe his game 2 and 3 will be a little better. And honestly, Alejandro's been so passive that Philip Masker, if he survives, one turn or so, gets another march with, and actually gets to summon apes, he might not be in the most terrible spot, but he has to get through this turn, which is looking very difficult. That Hirudegarn, flip side ability is really gonna start taking a toll on his hand. So, and you see, it's such a difficult situation. Just a Gohan attack is making him think a lot. Do I negate now? Do I combo off of this? Try to get more options.
I mean, Ale still has 5 energy, and that is insane because this deck can pull out some pretty cool stops. I mean, it does have access to forcing hit, which is one of the most deadly things that can come down for 4. He obviously still has the chain attack Zeno package, which he probably wouldn't do here because Philip is so far behind already.
And there's one of my favorite cards this format. Philip Masker is gonna take a read here. This card is absolutely absurd. And whenever Alejandro has 4 or less cards in hand, it attacks for 1500 critical, and then he's gonna trigger it and draw 2 cards. Even if it gets blocked here, just the card advantage coming through from Alejandro, playing this deck like a mid-range deck with all 1-drops.
I mean, it works.
Yeah,
and I think that's a good adaptation to the format. If they're gonna slow you down, you got to be able to play that slow
down
game.
too.
Yeah, you slow down too.
It's also very good after a Zeno combo. If you have that Gohan and your leader and the Zeno haven't attacked yet, you combo 1 card into the Zeno attack, so it almost forces the opponent to take it unless they drew a super combo out of their 5 cards. And then right after that, if you have 3 energy, you slam the Gohan down and draw 2 and attack the opponent for critical. So it's almost like a +3 after the Zeno play combo, and it really helps a lot because the leader doesn't actually draw cards when it awakens. So that's a very good way to refuel after a Zeno combo from the side of Alejandro. And the opponents, if they're not playing red, they're not going to have access to a card that just generates so much advantage like that. So Philip Masker is out of flying Nimbuses, I believe. Oh no, he still has one more. But again, Alejandro's just content getting through each and every one of those without a problem. Now he has the planet, so he's going to be able to attack with his apes without caring too much, because they're going to untap at the end of the turn, but it might be too little too late for him here.
Yeah, there's a tough position that Philip has backed himself into a corner on, because he is only at 2 life, so that Saiyan Kaba is just staring at him.
If I'm not mistaken, Alejandro does not play any negates, so there is a possibility that if Philip can produce 2 double strikers this turn, he could divide his combo power in such a way where, you know, those 2 double strikers actually land on Alejandro's life, depending if Alejandro has very few combo of his own. But, you know, as we can see here, Alejandro just has a full grip of cards, so I doubt even an all-in from Philip at this point could go through, but that is one of his only options.
Yeah, Philip's going to go after the Saiyan Kaba here, because the Kaba is lethal.
That is true. And I expect if he went for the Kaba, he's also going to go for the Gohan. Both of them.
Yeah, definitely the critical
red one first, yeah.
drawing to one, yeah. That card cannot survive another turn. A Gohan protects a Gohan.
And there you see, like the blue Gohan, the 1K that summons itself to the board, is just an incredibly versatile card. So.
And it looks like it's going to survive and draw Alejandro potentially another 2 cards. And that's not what you want to see is Philip here.
It's such an insane card against Apes also, because Apes lack targeted removal. So it can only get attacked, and Alejandro's just more than happy dumping cards onto the Gohan, because he's going to refuel him right back. So it's almost an unbreakable loop at this point. I suspect this is going to be the last turn. Philip is going to go here, 4th Nimbus. And I mean, as you can see here, Alejandro played super patient, never went all in. Always, whenever he got Nimbus, he never over-invested cards until the 2nd or 3rd attack of that turn. And he got rewarded because Philip had all 4 Nimbuses, so if Alejandro had taken a different line of play where he tries to overuse his resources and plays the game a lot faster, maybe he could have gotten significantly more punished by those flying Nimbus. But as it stands, even 4 Nimbus weren't enough to stop his attacks this game. And Philip might see that, honestly. In game 2 and 3, he might be thinking, my opponent isn't the type of opponent that goes all in, so that might also be like a strategy for him. He's gonna take that into consideration when sideboarding. But you know, that's one of the strongest parts about the Hirudegarn deck. It can be played in so many different ways depending on the situation. It's so versatile, and it really benefits a player who knows the format and is skilled enough to combo properly, because that's definitely what determines the ceiling of the player. Is, you know, when do I put 1500 power on this creature, 20,000, when do I go all in? Choices like that, you know, differentiate Hirudegarn players, regular Hirudegarn players, from, you know, incredible Hirudegarn players. So
I really love this new approach that Hirudegarn is taking here. It seems just really intricate and very just next level, really. There's not really another way to say it.
And here, Alejandro has the Champa. He's most certainly going to go all in on this attack, unless it's... Oh no, it's getting blocked. Okay, so yeah, no resources from Philip to be able to defend his monkey, but no problem. Here you see one of the strongest interactions in the whole format is actually fluting back a Gohan. It gives you massive amounts of advantage. It gives you the 10k Gohan that goes back to the hand. It protects the Gohan from getting attacked by the opponent, so because it's not on the field anymore, and the flute gets you net to your card. So it's, you know, significant amount of defensive power, and it really allows decks to survive in the early game. And Alejandro has taken that combo and added it to the Hirudegarn deck, probably honestly for the mirror matches, because the mirror matches, you know, Gohan, if the opponent dumps a lot of combo power in the early game, maybe that's what Alejandro's thinking. He's thinking, you know, against other aggressive decks, Gohan is going to be a key card, so that's why he's included in the deck here. This game is going to wrap up soon. It's just Philip hasn't had that many options this game. You saw him earlier. He didn't have any monkeys for his march. It's just, you know, running out of resources for a while now, and even one desperate play here, just taking his the last life available to see if he gets any kind of options. But at this point, there's just not that much fuel left in the tank for him. Maybe he gets another ape. Okay. If he hasn't gone through all his GT Goku 1Ks, maybe he could dig for that one. Try to super combo his way through next turn. But as it stands, he just got an ape here. And it'll be interesting to see. Let's see what Philip has in his sideboard to try to combat this style of Hirudegarn that Alejandro brought to the table. There is some merit to Crusher Ball, maybe hitting the early game 1-drop so that Alejandro can't awaken himself as easily. Let's see. Yeah, no, most of Apes' choices and options to combat the Hirudegarn deck are actually probably already in his main deck. So his sideboard is mainly focused on other matchups. I see here 3 copies of Dimensional Banisher Fu, definitely for the more mid-rangey matchups, but it's not going to help him against an onslaught of tiny creatures that Alejandro's bringing here. So he's just going to have to, Philip is going to have to rely on his almost all of his main deck for games 2 and 3. See if he just gets a better draw. I think he would have a much better time going against Alejandro. And I'd definitely like to see in this match, in games 2 and 3, if Alejandro goes for a Zeno combo play, and see how a game goes from there. Because even after a Zeno combo, Philip can do a March of the Graders for 2 Apes if he gets a little fortunate from the 5 cards that they draw from the Zeno. So I want to see a game play out like that. I think Philip actually has a much better shot if he gets Zenoed, because it means that Alejandro was in a bad spot and he had to do the combo. But you saw in that game, in complete control, never even considered the Zeno. He just discarded all the Zenos to his leader or his super combos. So yeah, just not much to say there. Alejandro took it even from the early turns. Philip wasn't able to mount a significant offense or set up defenses with Planet Vegeta crucially missing for 4 turns. I think he got on turn 5, so that was a little bit rough for him. And Alejandro definitely knows that the game could have been a little bit more difficult, and he is. I'm interested to see if he's going to choose to play as slowly for the second game. Maybe he chooses to change his outlook on the matchup and says, all right, if Philip gets a more optimal hand, maybe I have to be more aggressive and play for that Zeno combo. So if Alejandro Zeno combos while Philip still has a significant amount of life left, or even before Philip has awakened, could be very difficult for Alejandro to win from there. And that's, I think, Philip's main game plan from here on out. Just aggressively defend the life in the early game. That's where Alejandro's point of power is, and he just has to get through those first 3 turns and just start looping marches from there. And getting a Planet Vegeta would be very useful too. So we're just gonna wait until they finish sideboarding, and we'll be back for game 2 and game 3 if necessary very shortly.
Fernando, so moving forward, Fernando, what do you think about like Hirudegarn and SS3? Like SS3 has had such a huge influence on the meta. We have a lot of SS3s, a lot of different variants. A lot of people are playing slower decks now because they feel like they're more viable. Granted, they are if everyone's going to be running around Super Saiyan 3. What do you think about Hirudegarn and decks like Trunks and stuff moving forward?
It does have a lot to do with Hirudegarn and Trunks, those type of leaders that are very powerful on the front side. But honestly, what makes those leaders viable to begin with, or like, you know, what is different from a few formats ago and now that made leaders like those viable? It's all the Zeno combo. Applying pressure to the opponent in the early game, forcing them to be at 4 or less life by turns, 3 or 4 at the latest, and then resetting the game to the point where your cards, you have a lot of 1 drop, 0 drops, 2 drops, and the opponents are, as you said, the game is slowing down, so they're playing a lot of 4 drops, 5 drops, 6 drops. So when the game resets, first of all, the Hirudegarn decks, the Trunks decks might not even have awakened yet, so they're going to have more card advantage, more play potential by untapping their mana, but also they're going to have the ability to use those multiple cards in one turn and just abuse the fact that the opponent just has so low resources when the Zeno combo happens. So really, it's not that the front half of leaders have gotten any better. It's all because of what Zeno does to the game, and Zeno is what ultimately determines a lot of how matchups play out. So you saw there that the deck does have enough power and is robust enough to not have to rely on the Zeno combo. Alejandro basically discarded all of them to cycle through them and just go with a completely different game plan, a more defensive game plan there. So the deck can do that too. It doesn't suffer from that, but against let's say Philip has a lot more apes during the early turns of the game, or against decks like that summon Bergamo, it's very difficult to get through those types of board states, and just having a reset button gets you from behind to being super far ahead. So, and a key compare, and let's compare front side leaders that are very powerful. So as you mentioned, they're both blue, Trunks and Hirudegarn. A lot of people might lean toward one or the other depending on their play styles. Trunks being more aggressive, Hirudegarn, as you can see here, Alejandro, Mena, a more defensive player, so he chose Hirudegarn. More card selection, more access to something like Scientist Foos, more black cards, etc. It's about what do you value more? Do you value the 2 cards drawn when your leader awakens, or the untapping the mana? And moving forward, I believe untapping mana is going to be the standard, and it's because if you can do more than your opponent on the turn that both players get Zenoed, you're just going to naturally win, because it comes down, as the game has always come down to, just the number of attacks. If I attack a few more times than you do, I'm going to have an advantage, and that's why something like Flying Nimbus has been regarded as one of the best cards in the whole game for so long, is because you only get 3 attacks. I block the first one, block the third one, and I just take my turn with a bunch of my apes, for example, anything like that. So definitely untapping the mana has a lot of merit. It's and if you compare it in terms of card advantage too, as we see here, game 2 is on the way. We'll start talking about it very soon. I just want to wrap up the point that card advantage comes in many different ways, and you don't just have to draw 2 cards to gain 2 cards worth of value. Your mana can be turned into advantage with the cards that you summon from them. So,
especially with so many powerful cards that have autos that just net you cards, like Trunks, for example.
Yeah.
Kaba, for example. These are all cards that inherently don't say like draw 2 cards or draw 1 card or whatever. It's essentially saying draw a card from your life and then take a life from your opponent.
It's like card advantage with a condition almost.
Yes.
And if you play 2 of those conditions, it's even more powerful because they're attacking. The opponent has to respond to them in some way, forcing Senzu Beans, forcing 5Ks, 10Ks. So we see. I want to see Philip if he has a little bit of a better hand this time, charging 2 Apes. So he might not have March available to him right now. That's why he's being so loose with manning his Apes. He did start with a black card on turn 1, and that. Well, starting out with an off-color card in, I would say, GT and any yellow variant is probably the most disastrous, because if you can't get the Bardock loop going on actual turn 1, it's going to be, a little bit difficult to play defensive. And as you saw there, he's already at 3, already awakened, and Alejandro's going into a turn where he can just Zeno reset the game, and he's extremely favored to win. So Philip has the hope that Alejandro whiffs on the Zeno combo for the next few turns. Seems a little bit unlikely, as Alejandro mana to chain attack Trunks, so he might just have more of those in his hand. So very interesting how this game will play out. Normally in playtesting, if the Goku deck is awakened before the first Zeno play, it's just so devastating. It's so difficult to come back from. You lose so much card advantage as the SS3 player. Something really interesting here. Philip actually attacked with his Bardock. Not something that's a common play. Normally you just pick the Bardock right up because you don't want to give your opponent any card advantage. But taking away from the leaders that have power on their front side, like Hirudegarn, taking 1 life with that Bardock was actually a pretty good decision by Philip. But I'm interested to see if it's going to come back to bite him, because now Alejandro is more than capable of awakening. And I want to see how that plays out.
You think Alejandro flips on Philip's turn? I mean, we saw it last time.
He should not.
Disagreed.
He should not. Definitely. This time, more than any other time, he should not flip, because it's going to be a lot more difficult for him to resolve the Zeno combo if he flips on the opponent's turn. And you see him here, even on his 10k side, aggressively defending against 20k double striker, and it's because of that. He needs to Zeno combo immediately as soon as next turn. If he doesn't, he might be in a really bad spot. And we even see him utilizing the effect of his super combo to draw 2 cards. I think he's digging. If he does not have the combo already in his hand, he might be regretting manaing that chain attack Trunks. So,
do you think if you were Philip here that you should have pumped a little bit more into the Bardock, like just to really pressure Ale into throwing as many cards as possible to defend?
If he has, I'm gonna see his hand right now. If he had super combos, absolutely, he throws super combos there.
Yeah, he had 2 Piccolos in hand.
Yeah, so honestly, maybe 1 Piccolo, but even as far as 2 Piccolos could have gone into that attack, because Alejandro only had 5Ks and super combos to defend. So, it's one of those situations where Philip drew super combos and Alejandro didn't. Alejandro could have straight up not just taken double strike that turn, not had the chain attack combo, and then lost the game immediately. So, and you can see here Philip with a significantly better start than in game 1. We're seeing these 2 openings are completely different. Having the planet, having the early game attacks, the early game ape, and even the defensive cards of Master Roshi. He has super combos in his hand. He has it all, and Alejandro is from what I can see, nowhere near Zeno comboing him. He has so many Champas in his hand, which is comical because his opponent is at 2 life right now. We don't have it on the graphic right now. I'll change that for you guys in just a second. But it's funny, if any of these attacks go through, it's very possible that Alejandro's wins on the spot. But I want to see how aggressive Philip is with his blocks, if he has any. And I think this is it. I think Alejandro might go for it. He has so much. He has a Champa. That's the key to this play. But he has so much offensive combo power with Senzu Beans. And
the leader swing. You see how powerful the leader flip, can be on the turn that you're actually doing things. Because getting those 2 extra energy for free is just insane.
It might win him the game right now. In fact, I think Philip let his defenses down after such an aggressive opening. Alejandro recognizes this, and when Philip sees that Alejandro is discarding a Champa for the effect of the super combo, I don't think he's in a happy spot. I think he expects a few more coming down, and I want to see Alejandro go all in, and he doesn't. That's super surprising. Okay, maybe a bit of a messed up from Alejandro there. He is at 2 life, yeah, so throwing down Champas there would have gone Felito. Maybe Alejandro sort of overestimating what Philip can do, or it might have been that he was going toward an ape too, so it might have not been game. Would like to see that play again to, ask him what his reasoning there was.
Philip blocked.
Oh, he blocked? Okay, perfect, yeah. So even blocking, maybe throwing a little bit of power into the ape to try and get it off the board, because it is pretty threatening untapping with an ape. Like he did in game 1, he threw a little bit of combo power, was able to kill the ape. So that was an interesting play. He just made a completely different play from what he did in game 1. Maybe we could ask him about that, why he thought that the ape was just less threatening altogether. But in any case, we see Philip here being a lot more aggressive this game. And it's something that I'd like to see. He didn't get Zeno combo, so he's in a much better spot.
He's going to pump a little. Oh, okay.
So just freely pumping here to try and force cards out of Alejandro's hand. He knows that Alejandro's cards are a little bit more synergistic. So if Philip throws super combos to force Alejandro to use cards that he might otherwise want to summon, like you see there, the chain attack trunks, he might throw him off a little bit. But Alejandro defending pretty well there and matching super combo for super combo. So
I'm still pretty comfortable here at 3 life. So I think what Philip wants to do, ideally, get his opponent down to wait, he's at 4, no, 3 life. Yeah. So he wants to hit him with 1 for sure, and then come in there with a Scientist 2 or some type of other double striker. Maybe a march into Bardock, march into something just to help defend.
Yeah, and I mean he does have the 4 energy. So if he has a march and a few apes,
he's going to actually activate the swap mechanic here. He's going to swap his Gohan or Goku into a Gohan, and the Gohan's going to kill something in rest mode. So it's going to actually kill a Raging Spirit Gohan, and that is insane. That card's actually really good. Andrew 5-0 with green, blue, good stuff. Very good brew from him and another PPG player. Legacy GP winner, Andrew. Very talented mind, and really taking it with this really unique brew. First time I've seen anything like it. Very good take.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he's the only one playing a blue-green deck at the event today, and 5-0, he's proving why.
Fantastic. Just taking down one of the very powerful 8 players that we saw on stream earlier today that just cleaned up that baby that we saw on like round 3 or round 4. But so he beat a very talented player. I think he beat a very high tier deck and a very talented player. So we'll see exactly if we see Andrew in the top cut. I'm sure we will, but we'll see exactly who will be our stream match for that. I really, there's so many good picks right now. There's just Hirudegarn deck, which I'm very, I really am interested to see how this deck does against a mono blue deck.
Or if it can evolve more, if it can find a way to really make the mono blue matchup just a lot easier for itself. Maybe Alejandro shows us in the top 8 or in the future rounds how exactly he deals with blue primarily. You know, it'd be nice to see that. But for right now, he has to get through these apes because Philip Masker is doing a lot better than he was in game 1. And one of the key cards here, Banisher Fu, might take down this ape. We'll see what Alejandro wants to target. I suspect it's going to be the ape, the most pressing card on board right now, and so he does. And, you know, coast is clear if there's no block here. And there is a block right there. So Philip not down and out just yet, but Alejandro still with a fighting chance here. Only 3 cards in hand from Philip. And we'll see if Alejandro wants to go all in. And yeah, he's moving a lot faster than he was before. I think all the cards are coming down right now.
Yep, Alejandro sees an opening, and he's going for it. There's no reason not to here. Extending the handshake, that is over.
And I mean, we got to see much better game than game 1. Honestly, Philip did everything that his more aggressive take on the ape deck wants to do. He had the early turn double striking ape with the Planet Vegeta, taking multiple cards from Alejandro in the first few turns of the game. Alejandro with definitely a lot less combo power than he could have had, discarding some chain attack Trunkses during the course of the game. But maybe, honestly, what it came down to is Philip just having to awaken so early on in the game might have been detrimental for him. And from there, Alejandro was able to just chomp it, dump the hand, and win the game from there. Champa definitely giving a little bit of a different dimension to the game 2 and game 3. So
yeah, very good match, and really unique to see this different take and how exactly the new take works with Hirudegarn. Remember, guys, these lists will be available to our faithful, amazing, loyal Patreons. Make sure if you guys have not checked out our Patreon, it's PPGDBS. We will be releasing the list and releasing some of our own list leading into GenCon. GenCon's going to be a very exciting event. It's going to be the first official national championship qualifier regional for the season, and we want to get all you guys on the same page as us. Yeah. You want to be prepared for this event. Join the PPG Patreon. The $10 tier will get you all immediate access, all the top secret decks, all the deck lists, everything that you need to know. Is the best tier that you can possibly get. I think the second best would probably be the loot crate. So you can get like a box full of goodies. You'll get like sleeves,
sure,
exclusive products. I mean, us being a store, it works out perfectly. We always have like leftover championship mats, or players sell back the sleeves or anything, and we just throw them in there. So it makes for a pretty unique package, and it gives you a little bit more value on top of that. So definitely check out the Patreon if you guys haven't already. We'll be posting the lists on there. Early access. Remember, everybody will get access to the lists much later, but Patreon always gets it much earlier. You'll get them the same night of the event. We don't miss a beat. And then we'll be going over analytically the top 8 deck lists and what exactly to expect, because this is a very big turnout today, and a lot of popular players in attendance. So you'll see what the man Peter Catani, Alejandro Mena, and all these guys brought, why they brought it, and their reasoning behind it leading into GenCon, because that's a big meta shift. We're going through a big meta shift right now.
And I mean, all of our top players, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the top 8 decks are all, not completely different, but definitely a lot of
there's
card
good variety.
choices. Yeah, exactly. So it's not one deck beating everything. It's just an open metagame right now. And if you guys are planning on going to GenCon, definitely join the Patreon, get early access to the deck list. See, if you're interested in a deck style like Alejandro's, or the deck style like Andrew Calderon's. He's playing more mid-rangey, a blue-green deck, definitely a aggro blue-red deck like Alejandro's playing. Anything that you like seeing, that you're into, that you want to get more knowledge on, you could catch it there. So
very viable meta, love it, very diverse. I did not expect it from the beginning. The spoilers, everybody was crying wolf, but Bandai does it again. Another
Somehow, some way, they just make a format with it's so amazing with so few cards in the game, and the game's still growing so much as it is. Such a diverse meta game, and the card game is just only getting better and better from here.